Please go. Giorgio Caligari, the Deputy CEO for Strategy and Alliances at Aeroflot. Good morning. Nice to see you. What's the gap, Giorgio, between where Russia is, and we've just been hearing Kenny's aspirations for your market, and where the rest of the low-cost market is in Europe?
Well, let me try and set the record straight, because I heard that some carriers are claiming to be the first long-haul low-cost in aviation. Well, if we go back a few years and if we look at the history of the old and big Aeroflot, there you have a low cost de facto, because yes, prices were in a way subsidized, but the whole economy was a lower cost, a lower cost economy. And that meant that Aeroflot, at the peak of its history, was able to carry 120 million passengers. And many of those were domestic, long-haul, low-cost passengers. So the model of providing low-cost transportation in order to stimulate air travel as a way of, as the preferred means of transportation over other means of transportation, is something that goes back indeed a long time in aviation history. Which brings me back to your question, Guy, which is what's the gap? Well, the gap is that due to a number of reasons, the focus on developing aviation in Russia has been on establishing a reliable quality airline industry rather than on providing lower cost efficient solutions. That's why the regulation has focused on ensuring that customer protection was one of the main priorities. That safety also, obviously, Russia has had in the past a somewhat shaky record in safety, was certainly put at the forefront of the concern of the regulators, and that made that create a regulatory environment that was not the most welcoming for low-cost companies. That's why the latest two examples, Sky Express and Avianova, one of those with Western funding, could not succeed in that environment. We, as the Aeroflot Group, we now believe that the conditions are right. Not only us that have launched a low-cost company within the group, but also other operators are actually operating low-cost services to Russia. You have Fly Dubai, you have Air Arabia, you have Wizz Air, you have EasyJet. Those are the first ones that come to mind, but also in the Far East, there are operations in Far East of Russia. Yep. There are operators coming from China that de facto offer a low-cost product. So my short answer, after having given the long one, is that the gap is the result of a history of, interest in low-cost service that has then shifted towards, let me say, a more premium product, and is now going back to being attracted as there is an evolution of in the middle class spending behavior, therefore in the size of the customer segment that could be interested in local service, and then that gap will soon be closed.
Okay, so when you look at these guys,
yes,
and what they're doing,
yeah,
what are you taking from what others are doing as you enter this next phase? You set up a low-cost carrier. Where are you getting best practice from? When you look around the industry, where are you trying to learn from? Are you picking up hints from Kenny on kind of how to turn around aeroplanes? Are you listening to Christoph in terms of the retailing opportunity? Where's best practice right now? When you look at this, where are you learning from?
Well, we think that we try and learn from everybody, actually. So okay, we're looking at these guys that are running very successful airlines, but we're also looking at examples that are being pursued and implemented in China. For instance, Spring Airlines is a very good example of a low-cost airline launched in a very regulated, heavily regulated environment and being successful. We also look obviously at the US, we look at South America. I mean, if I think about Brazil seems to have a number of challenges that are similar to the ones that Russia has in terms of lots of customers using buses for also on long distances, airports which are not of the standard that you can find in the US or in Western Europe, and therefore posing also an operational challenge. And we believe that there are examples to be drawn from different geographies and markets. What I do believe is the common let me say success denominator is focus on your customers and understanding what you can deliver successfully to those customers. So listen to them. That's, I think, it's a leitmotif that has been greatly underlined by the other speakers. Listen to your customers, understand what they want, and deliver that as reliably and efficiently as possible.
It's interesting you say that, focus on the customers. I've been covering the sector for a long time, and everybody always told me you focus on cost. And maybe that's changing now, and the focus on the customers now exists, but you've got to get the cost right first. If you get the cost right first, then you're pretty much halfway there.
Well, I'm not saying that you can avoid focusing on cost. What I'm saying is that what I believe is that having efficient operations is a prerequisite, but is not per se a sufficient reason for success. Because if you don't listen to your customer, you will keep on flying your fleet 100% also during the winter, and you will lose all the money that you made during the summer. I mean, the guys to my left, Ryanair, has proven that listening to your customers means shaping up your maintenance cycles and shaping up your contracts with your pilots in a way that allows you to ground 100, 150, 180 aircraft during the winter. That, to me, is listening to your customers, understanding when and where they want to fly, and then adapting your operations so that your costs are as efficient as possible. If you go by, purely by cost, then you might miss some of the lessons that your customers are willing to teach you.
Is it possible to turn around an aeroplane in your market in 20 minutes?
No.
What are you looking at the moment?
Well, you see, again, learning from different operational environments means also understanding what makes sense. In a sense, for instance, our average stage length is much longer than the one that you would have in Europe, because geography is different, and therefore saving, let me say, 10 minutes on every rotation, while welcome, doesn't necessarily make the difference if your average stage length is 2.5 or 3 hours, because then it doesn't add you one, let me say, additional leg during the day, while it might do that when your stage length is 1 hour. So once again, what is important, for instance, is for us serving the right markets and having the right dialogue with airport operators, which is much more important, and ensuring that's even more important, that whatever the turnaround time, 35 minutes or 40 minutes, is the same when you have 2 meters of snow and when you don't have 2 meters of snow. That's
Bjorn knows about snow.
Bjorn knows about that, yes, and certainly he knows how to deal with it. But I can assure you that that's a much more important challenge than not shaving off 5 minutes in your turnaround time.
When you look at what's happened to the legacy carriers in Europe,
yes,
and the threat that has been posed by the low-cost carriers to them, do you see the similar thing happening in Russia?
Well, one thing I would like to highlight is the different rate of growth of the market. Even in a current, let me say, challenging political environment, the Russian aviation market grew more than 13% as a market in the first 6 months of 2014 over the 6 months of 2013. So it's a buoyant market that continues to deliver amazing growth rates. In that respect, segmentation rather than fighting for the same customer and offering to that customer different proposition is, in my opinion, the name of the game. So we believe that there are still segments that are growing and that can be served with a specific proposition, rather than moving market shares away from one segment to the other one. How
tough is it to operate a low-cost carrier for you guys right now? The sanctions story is obviously one that everybody's aware of.
Yep.
We know the impact it's had in terms of the European sanctions coming through and grounding airplanes. How big a knock has that been to your plans?
It's been something that obviously we would have done very happily without, but it's also been something that we're dealing with in a very, I would say, very factual way. So let me be very clear on this. Elliott, so our low-cost company, was put in the list of sanctioned companies in the previous round of European sanctions. That led to a number of counterparts, providers withdrawing their services, so reinsurance, leasing companies, maintenance providers, and that has de facto grounded the airline. The rationale for the airline is still there. The market is there. The kind of market response we had was fantastic, and the business plan is still there. I mean, we had the aircraft, plan, phase-in plan, and therefore we have every intention to continue with the project. Now, people have been talking about, okay, will Aeroflot flout the sanctions? Will Aeroflot challenge the sanctions? That's not the case. What we're doing is we're setting up a new company consistent with the current, let me say, international regulatory environment to fly the kind of product that we believe the Russian market is interested into.
And in terms of how long do you think it's going to take you to get all this to work?
We believe that there is a good likelihood of the new company flying again by the winter season.
Okay. And in terms of how much bandwidth, how much management time you've had to focus on this, presumably that's delayed opportunities further down the road.
Well, that's a very good very good question, Guy. Let me give you again another look of what the Aeroflot Group is about. We are now, if we look at only scheduled airlines, number 4 in Europe after the big 3. Yep. As we carried more than 31 million passengers in 2013, and we are on track to carry about 35 plus million passengers on 2014. The low-cost project is one of the projects that the group has. We have regional companies, we have a leisure company, and the expectation, the target, which we made public, was for that segment or for that operator to carry 10 million passengers by 2018, when the group is forecast to be carrying about 60 million passengers. So yes, the low cost is important. Yes, we do devote management time to it, but it's still between 10 and 15% of the, let me say, entirety of the group ambitions.
Giorgio, thank you very much indeed. We'll wrap that element of this conversation up, and we'll broaden the conversation out. Guys, I thought we were going to be here talking about low-cost airlines, but I think we need to rename the sector. It should be the high-revenue aviation sector, because we've stopped thinking about low cost being the primary focus. Maybe I'm overextending that thought, but you guys have all talked about revenue generation more than you've talked in this conversation about low cost. Christoph, you kicked it off. You talked about kind of businesses being retailers, and yeah, you've all told me that we are still airlines and we're going to focus on remaining airlines. But do we need to kind of, should we be rethinking the premise on which this sector operates? Christoph?
No, I think we have to ask the question a little bit more precise.
That's my fault.
No, I believe, let me take the modular product build-up we offer to our customers. We fly the same aircraft in the morning from Dublin to Heathrow. We have very little baggage because everybody's traveling with an attaché and is returning the same day. So basically, a clientele, they do not even want to eat something on board. They want to be just left alone and read their newspaper and do the work they should have done the evening before. Right? The same aircraft returns to Dublin. We turn it around and fly it to Malaga, and 1/5 of the airplane accounts for children. You see not a single tie on board. So we have to offer basically two absolutely completely different products. One is similar to a charter carrier, the other one is a full business short-haul flight. And we have thought that if you build your cost basis on a hardwired product offering, let's say like Lufthansa or Air France, where they cater a magazine for every potential business class customer, no matter whether he's booked or not. They always carry 25 magazines on board. They have catered breakfast for everybody, irrespective of they want it or not. Everybody gets frequent flyer points, everybody gets access to the lounge. So you have a fixed cost base in that product offering, which is there regardless of the demand in business class. And what we have done in Aer Lingus is we have variabilized this cost basis such that we only offer the service if there is demand for it. So we have the lounge in the morning, it's full, we charge for it in the fare, but it's not available or it's not wanted for the Malaga. So I believe low cost, everybody tries to be low cost because we are offering a commodity. If you are not low cost, you will be exiting the market regardless, you know.
That's a given.
And we have now spent the last hour discussing revenue models, which is totally irrespective of, because it only joins in showing either a profit or a loss in your P&L, but it's not necessarily related to each other. So I believe I would put it that way. A low cost or lowest cost offering is a prerequisite to survive in our market. And then the discussion whether you are able to return on your capital invest is in fact a revenue question. And it's not a question of the end consumer price, it's just your ability to follow the elasticity curve in the closest way possible. And that means you have to organize your product in a way that you have an indefinite choice of product combinations, which allows you to hit every point of demand on the elasticity curve. It's that easy to say and more difficult to do, I have to admit.
Execution. You guys agree with that?
As I said, I think that low cost is a prerequisite. Rather than low cost, I mean the most efficient cost possible in the environment you're operating in. Otherwise, as there are very low barriers to competition, and even when there are barriers, there are very smart companies like Norwegian trying to go beyond those barriers. The only way to compete is always retaining the most efficient operation. So yes, I definitely agree with that.
Kenny, let me ask you just a slightly different question. The low cost is a prerequisite, and the revenue is kind of where it gets interesting. There's a dimension that I haven't talked to you about, which I'm kind of curious to fit into this and get everybody's reaction. You guys can borrow at really cheap rates. How big a differentiator is that going to be as well?
If we want to use it, so yeah, we can borrow at cheaper rates than sovereign states. So we've got the best rated balance sheet there is. So that's a great club to have in the bag in the next number of years to be able to draw on. I think it's a great vote of confidence in the business model. It's a great vote of confidence in the P&L and the balance sheet going forward. So it gives us an extra option for financing, and we've already.
How big a difference do you think that's going to make?
It depends on how much we'll use it over the next number of years. I think it shows that long-term health in the way we run the business and in the focus on cost, which is really, really important. And it gives us it's part of that platform with the two big aircraft orders.
And just to follow up on that, we've talked about, and Christoph's talking about the revenue versus cost. Are we at the point where we need to, or are you thinking about those two completely differently? Do they go hand in hand? I'm kind of wondering how they gel within the business model. If you think about the P&L and how those two work together.
The focus on cost in Ryanair is total. So coming into the business with fresh eyes, coming from retail is a tight margin business, there is a relentless focus on cost in Ryanair, and that will always be there because we have the lowest cost per passenger. That's how the P&L works. That's a great operational efficiency drives that low cost. So we will never lose that focus on low cost. And I would say that's the one thing, if I come back to kind of the German discounter example, that's what they've retained as well. So we will never lose the run of ourselves in terms of that cost. We are 29 euros per passenger average cost. We have an 80% advantage on the next best cost, which is EasyJet. And that's if you take the new MAX order, That's going to reduce our fuel bill by 20%. Last year we spent 1.5 billion euros on fuel. That will help us reduce fuel by 20%. It will also increase another cost saving of 4% because it's a 197 passenger aircraft. So the center of gravity will always be cost and cost control at Ryanair. What we're doing is we're just getting a bit more sophisticated and extending out the way we view customers, the way we want to move to retention, the way we want to view revenue going forward.
Bjorn, when you look at when you're building your model for long haul, how much of those two sides are sort of occupying your brain in terms of the sort of the opportunity in front of you? Clearly, there is a need to have a low cost, particularly when you're flying long haul. How much time are you spending thinking about ancillaries and the revenue stream?
Well, first of all, I fully agree. Low cost is a prerequisite. Cost is actually is extremely important in all industries, and especially running an airline. So, but then again, you cannot. Cost is also about volume.
Yeah.
It's also about volume. That's why you cannot have low cost actually with a small airline. You have to have a fairly large scale of operation in order to have low cost. And then you have to concentrate on the product. Of course, we fly a lot of business passengers. So on some of our routes, up to 50% will be business passengers. That's why we provide free Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is, and we don't charge for it. I hate to pay for Wi-Fi when I'm in a hotel. Why should I charge it? It should be available for everybody. So it's about also the product what you give to the passengers. And moving over to the long haul, there is a different product. We will fly a somewhat different product than Willy Walsh will fly between Heathrow and JFK. Our segment, our majority, will be leisure market. Whether you like it or not, 80% is today leisure market, and it would highly likely move up close to the 90s in the future. That's why we have to be able to fly with so low cost that we also attract and can take that type of travelers, while we have to give access also to the business people.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've still got a few questions still to ask, but I think I should definitely give you guys an opportunity. If you want to put your hands up, there should be some mics. Let's start off with the lady in the front row. If you could say where you're from and to whom you are addressing the question.
Thank you. Victoria Moores with Air Transport World. I've got plenty of questions here, but I'll stick to just one for now and let other people get some in. And that is, can you pull out your crystal balls and tell us what you expect for 2015 for the market? That's to all of the panel. Thank you.
Kenny, you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, I think it's going to get, well, I know what we're going to do because we're always pretty good at doing the same thing. So fares will be more competitive. We're going to be, I think you'll see a bit of a price scrap potentially on key city pairs for primarily the business customer. I think that'll be, I won't call that a price war, but I think little skirmishes on key city pairs. I think that's something that you'll expect to see. And then just the ongoing usual stuff that you would expect. You know, we're going to have a lot of capacity. We know what we're going to do with it. We know there's going to be better demand for Ryanair than there's ever been before because we've improved the customer experience and we're making it easier to book and keep booking. So they're the two things I'd expect. You know, really good, solid growth from us, making it harder on key city pairs for some of our competitors.
Anybody else? Christoph?
For us, it all depends on Scotland.
We haven't talked about that. How did I not get to Scotland?
No, but without joking, if the pound is devaluated, for Ireland having the biggest export market in the UK will certainly have some macroeconomical implications nobody has really started thinking about. Leave alone inbound tourism from the UK, which is the largest amount of visitors we have. So short haul is a little bit dependent on that, but generally I believe the market in the UK surprisingly has recovered also in the hinterland. That goes a little bit against all odds. If that continues, I think 2015 will be one of the better years since the financial crisis. On long haul, we have some visibility, of course, forward, and 2015 will be another good year on the North Atlantic, without any doubt.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes. Well, I've just read the research put out by the IATA economists, and they're forecasting market growth globally of about 5%. Now, that's obviously kind of a chicken average. So the point is that some markets will continue to grow faster. For instance, we are forecasting for Russia growth rate of about 8%, potentially going up to 10%. And we see Europe, in terms of market neighboring us, growing at a much slower pace. The point is that there will be significant, that's our belief, significant market shifts in terms of customers moving away from higher prices business models to more efficient business propositions. So that growth will certainly not translate in an equal growth in profits across the board.
Okay, let me start. Continue in the front row.
Malcolm Ginsberg, Business Travel News. Fuel prices seem to be coming down. Aircraft are getting more efficient. Are we going to see cheaper fares next year? What's your prognosis for the forthcoming period?
Take your pick.
Obviously with high fuel prices you really have to fly efficient aircraft, and when it comes down, obviously the bottom line will be much better. Fuel price is very essential. Then again, you won't see I doubt that you will see the very low oil prices. It will maybe come below $100 a barrel, but I don't think you will see very low oil prices in the future. It's too little oil for that.
So low jet fuels.
Jet fuel will be just. But I think it will be business as usual. Maybe less cost, and that's good for the airlines.
Okay, not everybody's agreeing with this.
No. I absolutely disagree. Since we measured 17 years ago, air travel becomes cheaper 2.5% every year, regardless of fuel price movements, regardless of everything. Yep. We just become more efficient, aircrafts get larger, and on top we do expect really a bloodbath in Europe.
Okay. Cheerful. Georgia, you got a view?
Well, just to add our angle, because again, people talk about lower fuel prices, but there is, at least based on what most economists foresee, an evolving trend in currency exchanges, with the euro losing ground on the dollar. So it means that for European carriers, fuel prices will either be stable or actually increasing, notwithstanding the lower cost of lower price of oil per barrel. So as I said, as growth will be uneven, and as not everybody is as efficient as they should be, I agree with Christoph's assessment of bloodbath in Europe.
You guys are all comfortable with your hedging? You got it all? It's all in hand?
Oh, we are very comfortable.
Okay. Different views, different hedging strategies. Okay, anybody else? Gentlemen, just in here.
Good morning. My name is Axel Becker from Airbus in Hamburg. I have a question to Kenny Jacobs. When you look to your strategic move towards addressing more business travelers in the future, will you be more flexible with regard to the cabin product, for example, with the maximum seat count, different seat pitches, and service on board, in particular when you look at the 737-8200?
When you look at the 737-800?
8200.
Okay, so we are looking at the in-flight experience. We are looking at the decor of the aircraft. We're not looking at ever introducing a blue curtain that we will pull back at business class. We're not looking at having different seats for the business traveller, not business class. So it will be Ryanair straightforward. In the new aircraft and the announcement we made last week, the new aircraft do come with the Sky interior, which is a much better customer experience, better headroom. It's a different look and feel to the aircraft on the MAX. and the seats are lightweight seats that have a better pitch and have more space for the customer with better windows. So I think in the Max order you'll see a much better in-flight experience. In the 180 NGs that we've got coming, we are looking at, okay, how do we alter the color scheme? How do we take the brand kind of communication style that we now have in the advertising at our bases and get more of that on the aircraft? I think some kind of media last week said, "Oh, are you removing the garish yellow?" We are kind of looking at, okay, how do we make the ambiance a bit more pleasing on board?
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
do you put more of the Maxes on the deeper business routes? Do you tailor the aircraft to and the better experience you get with it to the business route, or are you going to be agnostic in terms of?
So far, we're totally agnostic. I mean, we won't get the first Max until 5 years'
Sure.
time, and then who knows what we will do at that stage. I mean, but our model works that any aircraft can fly any particular sector at any particular time. So you can go from Dublin to Gatwick in the morning with business travellers. You can then go from Gatwick to Ibiza with leisure travellers. So we will keep the focus on cost. That keeps the straightforward service. We don't want to differentiate it too much. That's our model. But the aircraft interior, as a part of the customer experience, is essential because I mean you have a captive customer. I mean people are 80 minutes in a seat, so I think you can do a lot with that customer from a media and entertainment point of view, which is another area where I think the industry is a bit behind. I think the idea of having a screen in the back of a seat in front of you is completely from the dark ages. Everyone is looking at their own particular tablet or particular iPhone. That's where you should be putting interesting content to engage that customer rather than something in the seat in front of you. But it will naturally evolve over time, and we're naturally going to look at things. I think everyone's going to look at Wi-Fi, everyone's going to look at USB chargers and data transfer in the chair of the aircraft. I think you're going to see different interesting things. I think stuff for families is particularly interesting when you travel with young kids. Yeah. You can see the stress on the parents' faces, but if you can keep those kids engaged on a flight from London to Malaga, those parents will love you. So I think that's what you'll. I think all the airlines will make better use of content and technology in the next number of years, which will lead to a better in-flight experience. But no blue curtains, no free peanuts, no free prosecco. That's not what we're about.
Okay. No free prosecco. Any other questions? Yeah. Sorry, fellow back there. We may get back.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Simon Calder from The Independent. It's exciting times in the UK at the moment, particularly this week. What advice would your excellent panellists have for a national airline for Scotland?
Great question.
Don't do it.
Seriously, we've got all kinds of things to think about here. There's the taxation story. There's the ability to get this set up quickly. Seriously, what would you do?
Well, I would say 4 times daily returns from Edinburgh and Glasgow from October 26th to London, whether that's heading to the capital of the Union or heading abroad to London, whatever your choice is. Ryanair is probably the national carrier of Scotland already. We're quite happy to rebrand.
The blue works.
We're quite happy to rebrand a few of the aircraft Mac Ryanair if that's a good move come Friday.
Now you're beginning to sound like Mr. O'Leary. The national carrier of Ireland. What would be the read across the RSC?
Yeah, we do the Gaelic thing quite well already. So I think our inroads in Scotland are of a great variety. Well, I believe, joke aside, what I said previously is really a very serious consideration. It will shake up the trade relationships between the UK and Ireland significantly, just due to the currency exchange rate. And also inbound tourism will be heavily affected should the UK break apart.
You worried about it? This is.
Oh, definitely, it's on the risk register. Definitely. I think we see a lot of people all over the place now starting to think about the consequences, which they should have started 3 years ago. We are one of them.
Yeah. Kenny, are you worried about it? You've got a big smile on your face, but
no, I mean it's not on our risk register. We see opportunities and we see some problems. But we have Prestwick has always been a big leisure base for us. We've added in Edinburgh and Glasgow as 2 new bases for us now, and we will see a huge amount of traffic from. Already we're seeing big bookings from both Edinburgh and Glasgow to Dublin and to London. So they're the kind of the big routes. I mean, there's always been big connections between Scotland and Ireland. There's always been big connections between both Scottish cities and London. So we expect that to continue, whether Scotland is part of the union or not. So we'll see. I guess we'll all see come Friday morning.
Trip to Murrayfield becomes a bit more complicated.
Do you know what? People will always do that. You'll get the Celtic trips, you get the Glasgow trips, you get the rugby trips. That part of life will go on.
Okay. Bjorn?
I remember the Vikings.
Wow, now we're going
half of Scotland is a Norwegian blood, you know. So we have a very close relationship with Scotland. So so I think we have the best friends. So we can always create a Scottish island, a Scottish airline, no problem.
Okay, good. We have a taker. Just to kind of wrap that up a little bit, Kenny's not worried about it. Christoph is worried about it. Are you worried about it? Do you think it's going to have a meaningful impact, Bjorn, in terms of your business?
No, actually, business will be as usual because yes, we fly a lot into some parts of Scotland, but I think business will be as usual. But I think it will be what we will see in the future is more diversified system. For instance, a lot of more direct flights out of Scotland to the west.
Do you think it will change the taxation story in either the UK or the rest of the UK? If you go for yes. Do the duties change, Kenny? Do you think there's going to be a?
I mean, if you take airport travel duty here in the UK, which is an issue. I mean, the yes side are kind of saying that they would remove it. The no side are also saying that they would look to remove it. So from our point of view, one positive would be that Scotland is trying to get more. Scotland either way will get more control of their own taxation. Within that is going to be airport travel duty. If they're smart, both sides of the referendum will say, let's try and bring that down because we're going to bring more tourists to Scotland. I think for every airline, that's a good thing, whether you're bringing sports tourists or whether you're bringing golfers or whether you're bringing whiskey tourists. It's a big opportunity, I think, for all of us. That's one of the big pluses that we would see. And the only point of view we had on it is reduce airport travel duty on the entire island, and it will allow us to bring in more tourists. As I said, we're bringing in 1.2 million more tourists to the Republic on the back of airport travel duty being removed. We can have a multiple of that number coming into Great Britain, England and Scotland. If that gets removed, and I think that's going to be one positive thing, and we hope it's going to be one positive thing, because both sides have said in the run-up to the referendum that they would look to reduce it or remove it.
Silver lining, Christoph?
I haven't heard that with the whiskey tourism, but it might add to the numerous hangovers in the country, I believe, should that happen.
Okay, I've probably got time for one more. Anybody got a last question? Gentleman here.
Good morning, Bernie Baldwin from Low-Fare Regional Airlines. There's been a lot in the States recently about the use of knee defenders. Ryanair already stops people from reclining seats quite sensibly, in my opinion. But I don't know about the other three gentlemen. How do you see using reclining seats in your aircraft and the potential for air rage amongst them, the travelling passengers?
Yep. I have the privilege of being able to represent a group, therefore a set of brands and a set of products. The premium brand, which is Aeroflot, is the only airline in Europe of which I'm aware of which still has fixed business class seats. So our way of addressing space concerns by our customers is to give them more space, both in business class and with a very, let me say, generous pitch in economy class. As far as the low-cost model is concerned, so our double yacht and the new company that will substitute that, we have decided to put 189 seats in the 737-800. That gives our customers a decent, or in let me say, low-cost standards, a comfortable pitch, which allows a minimum of reclining. Therefore, reclining is one of the customer experiences that we offer, and we will make sure that the customers have the ability to enjoy that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, in Norwegian we have reclining seats, and we have been voted as the best low-cost air 2 years in a row by Skytrax, so it works.
Okay. We'll leave it on that note. Ladies and gentlemen, I've really enjoyed this. Our thanks to the panel. Some really great answers, and I've certainly learned a great deal about where this industry is going forward from here. So thank you very much indeed for them. And I've been asked, basically what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 1-hour networking break. After that, we've got a series of round tables, and I've been asked to remind you, please, to sign up